Love is but a song we sing, and fear's the way we die. Now you can make the mountains ring and make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the way, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile your brother, everybody get together and try to love one another right now. I know that you can.
If you've got a cell phone, I encourage you to turn it off, and I see that we're broadcasting, so welcome to you, those of you at home as well. I'm really happy to have you here with us, whether you're in the sanctuary, smiling at me over top of your masks, or whether you're at home watching on YouTube or Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us this morning at 10:30 every Sunday morning. You have arrived at the Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz, and we're located in Live Oak. And so we want to start with our song of the month. So those of you at home, get your little voices ready. And those of you in the sanctuary, I want to remind you that we need to stay within our masks as if you're going to attempt to sing along. So here we are with our song of the month, We Shall Be Known.
We shall be known by the company we keep as the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known as the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep as the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known as the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that all thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great tourney we shall learn to lead in love. In this great tourney we shall learn to lead in love. In this great tourney we shall learn to lead as love.
Beautiful, beautiful song. I don't know about you, but I go through my week and I just hear those words. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. And so we are doing that. We are leading in love. We are coming together to be in spiritual community here at Centers for Spiritual Living Santa Cruz. And we're doing that both in person and online now. So if you would like to join us in the sanctuary, like the folks that are here, please know that we have a couple of things we're going to want you to do to come into the sanctuary. You will be required to wear a mask, and we really do need you to register. So those of you that registered, thank you. That helps us with our contact tracing as well, so that we can continue to open our sanctuary to these beloved souls who are joining us this morning. We are a global movement, and that global movement is known as Centers for Spiritual Living, and it is a worldwide movement. We share a vision and a purpose and a mission with Centers for Spiritual Living, and we have our own centering statement. So let's say this together mindfully. We are a spiritually progressive community that transforms lives and the world through a philosophy of possibility thinking, and my favorite part, responding to life with love. Thank you. So we have a wonderful morning planned for you. Our practitioner of the day, Sky Leona, will lead us with a quote and some brief spiritual practice, and then Lea and Friends will share another song with us, and then I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about politics, actually the politics of compassion. So stay tuned. And so let's bring Sky up to do our spiritual practice.
Let us center our hearts and minds opening to these words by Desmond Tutu. When we see each other as the enemy, we risk becoming what we hate. When we oppress ourselves, we end up oppressing ourselves. All of humanity is dependent upon recognizing the humanity of others. And now if you'd like to rest in your chairs with a deep breath, closing your eyes if you desire. Let us know together that we are the words and nature of eternal reality, that we have within us that ever-present creative power, whose manifestation is the entire universe. And let us also know that the spiritual reality of all things, circumstances, and people, we are co-creators. We are at cause in this infinite potential and possibility. And so I'm knowing here together with you, creating this sacred space, that we are healthy, we are strong, we are courageous in this time of so much happening in so many demonstrations. Some we like, some we do not. But I'm claiming for us here now that we have the potential always to turn to the more of us and recognize that more, that sweet, that kind, that loving essence that we see in others as well as ourselves. I'm grateful for knowing these truths, allow them to rest right now as we move into this next space of time with each other. The wisdom, the infinite wisdom, follows us wherever we go, and it is here now. And so it is. Thank you.
When I wake up in America, I see my neighbors there with every type of clothes and shoes, hats and skin and hair, every fine belief and custom. Scores of songs from who knows where. When I wake up in America, our stories fill the air. Wake up, despierta. Wake up, despierta. Wake up in America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, I see the kids playing, happily swaying. Good to be staying in a place like this, with a face like this. When I wake up in America, I put away my fear, and I love my neighbor as myself. And I say, I'm glad that you're here. We have found ourselves together in a land we dream could be. When we wake up in America, everybody will be free. Wake up, despierta. Wake up, despierta. Wake up, please, America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, when you wake up, when we wake up in America.
Thank you, Lea, and that was our own Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson doing the sign language, American Sign Language. What a beautiful song to be reflecting on as we move into this morning, as we begin to look at where we want to wake up each day. And so my name is Reverend Alice Reid, and you have woken up right here, right now, at the Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz. And I want to thank you for joining us here today. All month, we have been looking at this idea of cosmic connections. And we started the month looking at the universal heart and how we are all divinely connected at that heart level. We then began to explore this idea of bias, not the explicit bias, but those implicit and and subtle biases, those unconscious biases that we lean towards because of unmet needs. And what actually happens is that we use bias, the very thing that we have agreed upon that disconnects us and separates us, but that we actually use it on an unconscious level to belong and to find our connectedness on the micro level at the expense of the connection at the macro level. Then last week, Reverend Elijah Christopher shared with us this idea of loving the unlovable. Loving the unlovable, what an idea. I think there's a lot of unlovely things that we are seeing out there in the world and in our nation, and so there's a call to love more. And so that leads me to today's topic, which is the politics of compassion. And so we started off our spiritual practice with this great quote from Desmond Tutu, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat it again. When we see others as the enemy, we risk becoming what we hate. When we oppress others, we end up oppressing ourselves. All of humanity is dependent upon recognizing the humanity of others. And so in a nation of citizens that really prizes our independence, the fact is that we are dependent upon our interdependence. Like, this society and culture does not work if we don't work together. I was shopping the other day and found these great pants. and as I was purchasing them, you know, I've been reflecting on my own values, and I've been reflecting on, you know, what some of us lament as our consumerist nature. And it occurred to me, though, that in order for the very nice woman who owned the local store in Pacific Grove, for her I was supporting her well-being by purchasing an item from her. And so there's this balance that we're looking for in how we work with each other, how we can begin to actually support our interdependence with each other. And so this idea of being independent might not be what it's all cracked up to be. And so when we look at, as Desmond talked about, our humanity depends upon us recognizing the humanity in others, that is the time for us to, it's sort of like the namaste of my humanity recognizes and honors the humanity in you. And when we can do that, when I can really see your humanity, and when I'm talking about humanity, I'm not talking about the picture-perfect person we judge other people to be, but that real live person that has foibles and makes mistakes and does wonderful things and everything in between. That when I can recognize my own humanity and I can see and celebrate your humanity, that we are beginning to cultivate this thing called compassion. This thing called compassion. And when you look up, as I am often to do, I like to look up the words that I'm going to be talking about so that I'm really clear, because clarity is important here. Compassion is defined as sympathetic concern for others. And politics is defined as those social agreements that we make with one another. And so the politics of compassion is really those social agreements that, at least from my vantage point, I think we really need to make with each other for being sympathetic, being concerned about each other and each other's well-being. And I think that it's easy to lose sight of that, those values of caring for one another and caring for a community, when we get caught up in the structures, right? And the systems and the things that, you know, that need to happen. Now, I say this a lot. Everything is created twice. First in consciousness, or thought, and then in form. And so if we look out in the world, it's, at this collective creation that we have made in 2020. Yikes. Yikes. It's a little confusing to me because there seems to be a lot of disparity. There seems to be a lot of competition for ideas and the ways we think we need to be in society, and everybody's very caught up in the form. And yet I think we've lost sight of the clarity that is required for us to create more unity and harmony in our society and in our world. I came across, so our book of the month this month, one of them, there's actually, both books are great, but the one that I'm going to be working from this morning is by Mark Nepo, and the title is More Together Than Alone. And if you're familiar with Mark Nepo, he does a wonderful job of creating these little essays that make great points. And he talked about in one of his stories recounting an early civilization that all spoke the same language. And they so loved their tribe that they decided that they would build this huge tower. And it would be so tall that no matter how far any of their beloveds traveled, they would simply turn around and they would see the tower and they would know the way home. But this endeavor took much longer than anybody expected. And in fact, there was 3 generations later and they were still building this tower, and it became a project in and of itself, and there were all these resources that were going towards it, and everybody was very concerned about it. And in fact, it took a brick carrier a full year to carry a brick to the top of the tower. One day, one of the brick carriers fell and died, and the brick that he was carrying was lost. And the masses mourned the brick and forgot about the carrier. And of course, this is the story of the Tower of Babel. And as the story goes, God was so displeased by their disconnection that he confounded their language so that they couldn't understand each other. And as I reflect on this story, I'm not so focused on this idea of God confounding our speech. I think that as these individuals got so lost in the task, as they began to focus so much on the effect as opposed to what they were trying to do, this beloved idea of making sure that their folks could always find their way home, they were just lost in the effect. And in that effect, they began to not understand each other. They began to have a great deal of importance in the structure and had forgotten the heart of the project. Does it sound just mildly familiar to what we're experiencing in our political environment right now? When, our democracy was created 7 generations ago. A generation apparently is 30 years. So 7 generations ago, our democracy was created. And it seems to me that we have lost the ability to understand each other because we're so connected to the structure that we created around the democracy that we've forgotten the heart of why we created this democracy. We've forgotten to be compassionate with one another. We've forgotten the importance of the individual. We've forgotten that the individual is never more important than the whole. And we're battling a little bit, aren't we? We really are. And it's easy to get caught up in the structures and this system versus that system versus this platform versus the other. But I think all of this, I've actually been saying for years that our system is broken. Does anybody disagree with me? I mean, it really does feel broken to me. And I think that sometimes you have to break down before you break through. Or as Richard Rohr likes to say, we move from order to disorder to reorder. Order through disorder to reorder. And so maybe it's a good thing that things seem so discombobulated and broken. Broken's the best word I can think of. And so we're going to be moving through this next 10 days of a lot of babbling. A lot of babbling. And I imagine it's going to be very difficult for you not to pay attention to the babbling, we're going to want to see what's happening because we have this investment in the effect. But maybe over the next 10 days, I can invite you to do something a little different. You'll have to keep one eye out on the news. You can't just go in a hole and pretend it's not happening. But maybe you can allow yourself to be really renewed when you come to see what's going on in the world. I absolutely know that within one of the basic tenets of our teaching is that it is the clarity that we find within ourselves that creates results. And I have experienced that over and over again. I had a birthday on Friday, yay me, and and I decided to go to what many religious scientists consider the Mecca of religious science, and that's Asilomar. So I spent a couple of days in Asilomar last week getting clear. I needed some time apart. So I was reflecting on what it is I really wanted in my relationships. I was getting clearer about what those things were that were important to me. And I think so anybody who has had any practice with our philosophy, you've probably had the experience of going to a practitioner and wanting to get some prayer support. And you go to them and you tell them all the things you don't want. And the practitioner pauses and says, "What do you want?" And so when I'm encouraging you to get clear, I know you're clear on what you don't want. We are all clear on what we don't want. What I'm inviting you to do is to get very clear on what you do want. Because that really works. I'm hand to God. I made this beautiful list of the things that I wanted in relationship, and I was awake less than an hour in a conversation, and it started showing up. Literally started showing up. And as my day unfolded, I recognized, oh, yeah, I said I wanted that. Oh, yeah, and I said I wanted that as well. And it just continued to show up because I got clear. So my invitation to you this week, in this very pivotal week, we've got 10 days before the election, is to not only take some quiet time and some time apart to decide what you want, but to commit to it. Put it in writing. Revisit it before you sit down to catch up on the news. Hold it in your heart and your mind to such a degree that the clarity continues to come forth for you, even amongst all the babbling that you're going to hear over the next 10 days. Disengage from the drama and re-engage to your intentions. Now, you might not see the world shift on its axis right away, but what you might notice are the little things that start to change as you move through your day and your week. You might notice that person that you typically disagree with, who really raises your blood pressure, suddenly you're not triggered by it anymore because you're grounded in your intentions and your values. You're so grounded in them that you committed to them and you put them in writing. You took the time to write them down and you took the time to read them so that they could be the impetus for how you see and react to the world. And that's actually how we change the world. We change the world by changing us. And I know, beloved activists, it does not sound like something that is really powerful, but the fact is, when I change my mind, I behave differently. And not only do I behave differently, but I treat you differently. And when I treat you differently, you're going to treat somebody else differently. You're going to be impacted by that. And the ripple effect of that is powerful. And I may decide that I want to be in some march or protest, or I may want to stop patronizing, one establishment and start patronizing another. There are all kinds of things that I can do when grounded in my values and my intentions. I'm no longer rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. I'm steering the boat through my intentions and the power of my clarity. That story of the Tower of Babel and the whole idea of being so invested in the effect that we mourn the crumbling of the effect as opposed to the worker who lost his life. I got really clear when I read that I needed to focus on what was important to me, which was the compassion that I have for humanity and the compassion that I have for our greater well-being, and that my well-being in my corner of the world is empty if it doesn't include your well-being as well. And so I don't mourn the loss of the brick, because maybe the brick needs to fall apart. Maybe the structures need to shift. Maybe, as Richard Rohr likes to say, it's time for us to navigate disorder so that we can reorder. I have to believe that when we choose the well-being of ourselves and the well-being of others, that something good comes out of that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure in 1776, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, there was a beautiful idea for a world that worked for everyone. And so it's time to recreate that. It's been 7 generations. And we start with ourselves, and then we behave from that place of clarity, and the world will shift, and the world does shift, and the world can shift. We are cosmically connected. We cannot be unconnected. We cannot be separate. We can pretend. We can forget. But when we wake up and when we choose, that's when the world begins to change. And that's when the greater good begins to bubble up. So be strong, my friends, this week. Focus on your love, focus on your compassion, focus on your values and the things that you want. And as Desmond Tutu said so beautifully in that quote, don't lean into your hate or your oppression. Lean into the fact that you are human and that everybody else is human, and that when we recognize our humanity in each other, that's when it's easier to choose compassion and love. And I think that's going to be the secret sauce for this week. Thank you very much. So I think it's time for us to do a little prayer. And so I invite you to close your eyes and just really get centered and feel your feet on the floor. Feel the piece of furniture that's supporting you, knowing that you are absolutely supported by Spirit with the same absoluteness as the piece of furniture that is beneath you and the floor beneath your feet. And as you allow yourself to feel that support, know that there is indeed a divinity that is moving in as and through each one of us. And that as we move and have our being, that this power and presence is always inviting us to express it as only we can. And so I know as we move through this week, we allow ourselves to be grounded in that choice for compassion, that choice for love, that choice for the greater well-being, which equals our own individual well-being. And so we celebrate our interdependence with one another. We celebrate our connectedness, knowing that as we continue to choose love, loving ourselves, loving each other, and celebrating our humanity, that what bubbles to the top is indeed powerful and clear and accessible and available. And so I know for each one that we focus on what it is we want to see in the world, and we choose to be that thing that we want to see in the world, knowing that this is the only way that spirit can have its experience, by means of us. And so it is with a grateful heart that I know this highest good for each individual within the sound of my voice, for our larger community, for our nation, and for our world. That as the world seems to be falling apart at the seams, the truth is it's being reinvented and reordered. And so we do our part, first in consciousness and then in deed. And I give great thanks for this power and this presence that is forever moving through us, as us, and by us, knowing that indeed love will have its way. We simply anchor this in that same love by saying together, and so it is. Thank you.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to open my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to stop. Once I decide to change my mind, love will show me how. Love is my decision. It's my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to walk down that road. Love is my decision. No one else can carry that load. And once I decide to change my mind, love will show me how. Love is my decision. It's my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance across that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. And once I decide to change my mind, love will show me how. Love is my decision. It's my decision
Thank you, Lea. Love is indeed my decision. Let's make it all of our decisions. All of our decisions. You know what I mean. We have a weekly affirmation, and so this affirmation is a little different. So if you're in the room with someone else, I invite you to look around as you say this affirmation. And if you're home by yourself, I invite you to just place your hands on your heart and say this to yourself and those that you love. So let's say this together. Beloved, I see you, I hear you, and I support you right where you are. And that is indeed how we are in community together. And I want you to know that I appreciate you. And so it is appreciation time. I want to appreciate each one of you that have continued to support our beloved community with your financial support. As you know, there's 4 ways that you can continue to do that. There's actually a 5th way if you're in the sanctuary. If you're at home, you can mail a check. You can go to our website and click the donate button. You can go to our app, or you can go ahead and go to the text to give. If you're here in the sanctuary, we have a bowl at the end of by the door, and you're welcome to support us that way. Please know that we are grateful for your financial support. It's really because of you that we continue to be able to meet you under these new circumstances as things continue to change. We really feel your support. I want to thank the volunteers who are helping us so beautifully to have our sanctuary open, and the tech team and the welcome team. Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning. I want to thank Sky. I want to appreciate you for your beautiful spiritual practice that you do every Sunday. I want to also thank our wonderful musicians who are supporting us from afar. We really are recreating things, aren't we? From disorder to order again, reordering, so thank you. I'm very excited to tell you about this class that's coming up. Reverend Elijah Christopher will be teaching Synthesis Chapter 1. And this is a really wonderful class. I believe this is one of the first times that Elijah has taught a class in our community. And so I hope that you'll sign up for it. It will be an online class. You need to register to be able to take it, and it will be on Zoom. You'll get the Zoom identification information once you register. The cost is what Elijah likes to refer to as a gift economy love offering. He's reordering some things himself, and so he explains that in the class, but it's very much a love offering, and you get to pay what you want to and pay from a place of value, and it is a gift that he gives in this class, and then you get to give the gift of financial support. The Power of 8 a.m., we have just a couple more days of this a week and a smidge. We do it Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., 15 minutes, get yourself grounded. It's very simple. You can call in. You don't have to use your camera. It is a Zoom call. We'll do a little inspiration, some centering practice, and then a blessing. 15 minutes, and you're on your way. It's 8 a.m. on our Zoom room, 831-000-1818. And we'll do that all the way up to Election Day. After the service, for those of you that are at home, if you would like to connect with us, please join us in our Zoom room, same number, 831-000-1818. We'll be on Zoom from 11:30 to 12. If you've had some wisdom you want to share, maybe an insight, some questions, it's a great place for us to continue to connect even though you're still at home. I also want to invite those of you that have been joining us online. If you're on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We get more goodies when you do that. And if you've enjoyed this morning's broadcast and the music and the wisdom and the spiritual practice, share this broadcast through Facebook or YouTube with your friends and family. Those of you that are in the sanctuary, I'm going to invite you to leave very mindfully, keeping physical distance, and if you want to talk to each other in the parking lot, feel free to do that. Again, continue to keep your masks on at a social distance, and this is how we keep our sanctuary open. So thanks everybody for joining me for this wonderful adventure. The only other thing I think I haven't talked about is if you're looking for a Zoom connection throughout the week, join Kaylee Dugan on her Zoom meeting room, 666-000, Monday through Saturday at 1 p.m. I'm really glad that you've been here with us today. I'm very grateful that you joined us from home, and I look forward to seeing you later this week in one form or another. And I know that you're going to have a great week staying grounded and committed to your values and your choices for what you really want. Have a great week.
Love is but a song we sing, and fear's the way we die. Now you can make the mountains ring and make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the way, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile with your brother, everybody get together and try to love